Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year, if it is indeed the new year by the time I post this. I'm here today with a quick 5-minute review of a pretty short classic science fiction book from Jules Verne. That book is From the Earth to the Moon. This book is one of Verne's Extraordinary Voyages series, which includes his most famous works, The Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Around the World in 80 Days. But they actually number a whopping 54 installments in total, which I didn't realize before doing the research for this video. This book is the fourth in that series in order of publication, and it's the fifth most popular of his works based on the number of people who have read it on Goodreads. I have to confess right now that although I'm interested in reading Verne's other works, this is the first of the series that I've read myself, so I can't really say much about how it compares with his best-known stories. The book tells the story of the Baltimore Gun Club, a group of ballistics enthusiasts who, facing a sort of existential crisis following the conclusion of the American Civil War, in which many of them were closely involved, turn their attention towards a new ballistics project, launching a projectile from the surface of the Earth all the way to the moon. They face an additional challenge in that not just any little bullet will do. They need it to be large enough so that they can actually track it with a telescope to confirm that it's arrived on target. Although the scientific background of this story is maybe not all that impressive by 2020 standards, it becomes all the more astonishing when you consider that this novel was first published in 1865. For context, that's the year when the Civil War ended, and almost 40 years before the first human flight by the Wright brothers in 1903, not to mention 95 years before the first manned spaceflight in 1961. And even just talking about unmanned space travel, the first probe sent to the moon didn't arrive until 1959. So although the precise scientific calculations Verne presents in this novel may not be entirely feasible or accurate, I still find it absolutely remarkable just how forward-thinking this novel was in terms of space exploration, and I think Verne would have been pleased if he'd been able to look 100 years into the future and see what humans had achieved by now. Or maybe he would have wished for this to happen in fewer than 100 years, but I still think he would have found humans' achievements in space travel highly inspiring. This is a fun little story about humans' curiosity and about our drive to explore our world and beyond. To be honest, the plot of this story itself was not really super exciting, and I found myself kind of bored at times with the highly technical explanations that go into pretty advanced mathematical detail about how the specifications were determined for the launcher, the projectile, the telescope, the exact time required for launch, etc. I imagine, though, that an engineer reading the novel today will enjoy this amount of detail and may get a chuckle or two at some of the specs that, although seemingly reasonable at the time of the novel's publication, may no longer hold up based on today's knowledge of materials science. There were a few little twists or developments during the novel that I found interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything important, although the novel isn't really one that's conducive to spoiling anyway. But, for example, at one point we encounter a character who is an armorer and as such is pretty much the sworn enemy of the Baltimore Gun Club because he's part of this little arms race with them where basically he's historically tried to come up with armor impenetrable to whatever's the latest innovation of the gun club. Distraught to learn that the gun club is now planning a project so powerful and with such good funding that there's simply no way his armor could possibly resist it anymore, he becomes sort of a political antagonist and an outspoken skeptic of the gun club's project, vocally opposing it, though unable to really stifle humanity's zeal for exploration. These and a few other characters add a little bit of life to the novel in the midst of all the technical calculations and drier discussions that are especially prominent in the earlier chapters of the book. I was surprised also just how many different aspects of the endeavor Jules Verne manages to cover. He goes into the possibility of life on the moon and the importance of communication with any beings that live there, evidence for and against the existence of an atmosphere on the moon, and plenty of other things, including a few that I don't want to spoil because they're just too much fun to see on your own. He also paints a pretty believable story of how humans throughout the world perceive this endeavor and rally to achieve it, though perhaps in hindsight Verne may be a little overly optimistic about the potential for international support and collaboration on this project. Like I mentioned, this book, although only about 5 hours long in the recording I listened to, can be a bit slow at times, and it isn't quite the action-packed adventure that we see in comparable but more modern science fiction, such as even Michael Crichton's work. For the story and plot itself, I'd probably only give it 2 stars, but in the end I did still like it. I gave it 3 stars overall for how impressively and thoroughly it tackles a sort of space technology that I would have thought almost unthinkable immediately following the American Civil War, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to hear if others like it even better. Have you read this or any of Jules Verne's other works? Have one you'd like to recommend? Let me know what you thought in the comments. Until next time, bye, and happy reading.